What up YouTube, Topaz Yates back for another review, and this one is to that Lupe Fiasco, Drogas Ways, man. And I'm gonna give this one the yellow light because there's some solid music up on here, and I like a lot of the messages that he's kicking out. But the thing is, for every one dope song, you got another 3 songs that's kind of bad to go along with it, you feel me? Like, I feel as though there's a solid EP to be found in this that he really needed to cut down, but having 24 songs here, it was way too much for Lupe to consistently put out great music here. But ultimately, I still enjoyed it, you feel me? Especially the whole concept of the project. And I like the fact that he gives you the keys to unlock the concept in one of my favorite songs, which was Manila. Well, in order to break it all down, man, you first gotta ask yourself, what is a Manila? A Manila is what's found on the CD cover right here. It's a brass form of money from back in the day in which they developed these specifically for the slave trade. Like, one Manila was equal to one slave that they would ship out to America and make all of the profits off of. It was pretty much a early form of currency, man, specifically for the slave trade. And the thing that he's pretty much bringing about in this song, because it's all about materialistic stuff here, he's pretty much showing us there's no coincidence that we as a people are somewhat materialistic on how we love to buy the fancy cars, the clothes, the shoes, all the things that you possibly want, how we constantly trying to seek that out. This was ultimately the beginning of it, how they created a form of currency for materialistic individuals to sell people. So therefore, we're materialistic still to this day. Like, this is where it all began. But to fully unlock the concept, man, you gotta really pay attention to that outro of the things that Lupe is saying, as he's specifically keying on one boat in particular. Now, this boat was capsized in 1843, that they were finding Manilas and a whole bunch of bodies from the slave trade and all of that stuff, man. Now, the key here is 1843, because the slave trade was supposed to have stopped in 1801, but yet they still finding bodies and boats and all of that stuff that capsized well after the slave trade was allegedly over. So first of all, never buy that revisionist history that you see in the textbooks and all of that, of them saying that the slave trade ended in 1808. Nah, it kept going. But to further break things down, man, like, drogas translate to drugs. And when you compare it directly to this, like, something moved illegally, as we are the drugs that he's talking about through the waves. That was an awesome song. I love the production, love the concept, like everything about that joint. Now, my next favorite song was XO. Well, a lot of people were misconceiving this one right here, you feel me? Well, I like the production, I like everything about this one as well, as the basic concept here is just talking about drugs, specifically like ecstasy, as you can tell through the hook. Like, it's saying XO, ecstasy, and all of that stuff. Like, everybody knows that, but it's more talking about individuals and the highs, as he's talking about women worldwide, as well as he's specifically saying LA, Atlanta, all the way to Damascus and such. So these drugs that these women are taking is taking them on a trip that they are expressing through this, but yet he's also giving the bad to go along with it, on how it messes with them mentally. Also, how they mess up reproductive organs. And Lupe also talks about how they are specifically designed to be pushed on us as a means of warfare to continually hold us down. Like, super deep stuff on top of a super quality song here. My next favorite song was Kingdom with Damian Marley up on here, as this one was pretty cool as well, where the basic concept is looking at these areas that we as black people are known to come from, whether it's Kingston, Jamaica, or South Central Los Angeles and all of that. Like, acknowledge these places where we come from as our own kingdoms and own it. Like, it really goes back to how many people out there are pushing that buy back the block type thing. Like, instead of getting your money and leaving the hood and all of that stuff, man, you should want to stay in the hood, buy up the hood so that we can go ahead and rebuild and do things for our own people. And that's important because whenever you get money and leave the hood, then you got to understand that you're going to be alone around these other people that don't have your best interest in mind, that ultimately you can get caught up in the game just as quick out in the suburbs, if not faster, than being in your hood. But they're pretty much saying that acknowledge where you're from, respect where you're from, build where you're from, man, and don't war with yourself and everybody that's within there as we're all trying to come up together instead of trying to do the crab in the barrel mentality. And I respect that, on top of some solid production. And you know, it's a dream match right there with Lupe Fiasco and Damian Marley on one track. Like, that joint was solid. My next favorite song was that Imagine, where this is like a concept that a lot of people tend to talk about. Like, if you could go back and change something in your past and do things over, would you? And Lupe's approach here is, if he could do it all again, then he would do it all the same exact way for the most part. Like how he's saying in verse 1 on how he decided to drop out of school and pursue the music because that's really what he's always been about. Like, he would specifically do that again. And in the second verse, he begins talking about the record labels and stuff like that. He pretty much would do everything all again, like how he took his first advance and spent it directly on getting his homie up out of jail on bail and such, which that's deep. And that's real right there for an individual to do. Then he talks about the choices that he was making that ultimately led him to being blackballed in the industry. But yet he found a way out of it thanks to the anonymous hackers and stuff that pretty much threatened Atlantic to release the album, if you guys remember all of that. Like, he would do all of this over again because of the way that it turned out, I guess. And the third verse, he talks about maybe the one thing that he would have done, which is taking all of these lessons that he learned through his life to this point and reapplying it back to 18-year-old Lupe Fiasco. And that's real as well. Like, as much as you would like to say you would do everything over again the same exact way, like, we become smarter as we go through things in life. And these lessons, if you could push those back to your younger self, you could push yourself so much farther. And my last favorite song off this project was King Nas, where a lot of people misconstrued this as it being about Nas, and I can understand why, especially when you listen to that hook, was Nas has a song saying you a king now, which he did that specifically, which that was off of Stillmatic, but Lupe came out and cleared it up himself, saying that this song is specifically dedicated to his nephews, in which one is named King and the other is named Nas. It was really understandable that people were confused about this one, to the point that Lupe had to come out and say something, because he specifically designed it to be confusing. But still, it was a solid track. I enjoyed that production. I enjoyed what he was saying there. It was pretty cool. But yet, for all of these songs, he got songs like, say, Drogas, where he's just rapping in Spanish, in which I don't understand nor can translate Spanish, and it really wasn't that great of a feel. Then you got songs like Gold versus The Right Thing to Do, where he's trying to channel his own Jamaican accent and all of this, man, which is not his strength, and it somewhat reminds me of, you remember the album where Eminem was doing all of the voices and all of that stuff consistently, and it became somewhat overbearing. It started to feel like it was going in that direction, and I really didn't enjoy that song. On top of a bunch of other songs that just didn't work, whether it was the production was lacking, or it just didn't match the flow that he was doing, or it just came off as super dry. Like, he got a good collection of all of that L's a bunch of these songs off of this project, dude. Overall, entertaining. I like the concept. I just wish there was more consistent quality music that was within here, dude. And that's why I'm giving this one a 6.5 out of 10. If it just had less songs, I think it could have went up to like a 7 to a 7.5, because it would have been a better fluid album, you dig? Instead of one that I'm just going to skip through just for a few select songs. But yet still worth the listen, worth breaking down. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can follow me at Twitter up there And you can go to downloadpass.com, that's down there, to read today's article.